It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast, and I'm Laurie Rivers with you, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, we've survived the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, didn't we? And we're going to see that energy continue to play out over the next couple of weeks. Remember, the conjunction is a singular event, but the energy builds to the moment of the exact precise conjunction or the perfection. And then the energy rings out over time, technically for 14 years. And you're going to feel it the strongest over the next month because Jupiter is getting ready to move into Gemini May 25th. We got a lot going on this week, and I want to talk about that. We've got the Scorpio full moon this week and a couple of other things as we move to the end of the month. And I am going to be recording 2 episodes of the podcast today. I'm recording on April 21st. I'm recording 2 of them because I actually fly back to the United States on April 28th. It's been a wonderful visit here in Bahrain, reconnecting with family that I haven't seen in 26 years. Just very, very, very special event. And those of you who are patrons, I've been trying to keep you in the loop and getting to see a little bit of the country of Bahrain and our visit here. So it's a wild week as we build towards the Scorpio full moon. Now, no Scorpio slander on my watch. Scorpio is a great energy to have in your chart, and everybody's got it. It is transformational. It's transcendent in some ways. It is mystical in a very earthy, mystical way. It can be gritty and intense, but it gives you amazing rewards. Anything to do with giving interest, like interest-bearing accounts or investments, has to do with Scorpio. It's a long-term vision. It's a long-term strategy because remember, traditionally Mars rules Scorpio. And so it's the long-term tactical measures. It's the long game energy is Scorpio. And so this full moon is bringing stuff for fruition that you may have been waiting on for a while. And I'll talk about that. If you're a patron, I'll be doing the rundown on what the Scorpio full moon is bringing for you on April 23rd. April 23rd. It's in an early degree. So there's that, and it kind of mirrors the Taurus full moon back in 2023, which was back in October. So we'll discuss that this episode. So grab your coffee, get your water, hydrate, have some matcha, have some tea, have a hot cocoa. Depends on where you live. You might be moving into the iced tea and iced coffee wherever you are in the world. We'll go through this week's astrology. And then I will talk about that full moon, what I think you can expect on the world stage, and again, what you will expect and how you can kind of work with that energy here. And again, for patrons, you'll get your house by house breakdown on how to make the most of that full moon. Remember, full moons reveal. They're not a time to set intentions. And I think a lot of times when people talk about manifesting, what you're talking about is the beginning phase of the process, which is where you're setting intentions, right? So new moons are for setting intentions. Full moons are for realizing the vision. It's for harvesting the fruit of your labors. It is for the revelation of ideas into reality. So full moons are always about reaping the benefits of your intentions and your actions. And sometimes it reveals the truth. And we're going to see maybe some secrets uncovered this week as we go along towards in the next 2 days, or actually the next day or so with you listening to this. There may be some secrets revealed. I'm going to talk a little bit about that TikTok ban too. So let's get going. Let's see what's up on deck. What's up on deck? Of course, I'll do patron shout outs. And I don't know about you, but Mercury retrograde got me. If you've been trying to book readings with me and you couldn't use, there was no availability, that would be because I accidentally killed my schedule without realizing it. So thank you to the patron who pointed out to me that they couldn't book a career life path reading. Oops. So if you're a patron, Sunday you got a little gifty from me, giving you on all tiers $5 and up got a 50% off any reading, and that could be with the astrologers at Woke Astrology. That's Mackenzie, Casey, and Jennifer, and myself. You can save 50% on any reading with us, and on a select course. So I'll let you know in that little gifty. You'll have seen it already by the time this comes out to you Monday morning, stateside. So I'm going to pull up my handy dandy slide. And if you were looking at the slides for the 2024 year ahead, the full moon date's wrong in these. Everybody who is a paying patron has access to the year ahead that I did in December. The video, it's a 2-hour video where I went through things for you. I'll be doing it again in June 22nd. So make sure you register for that. That tends to fill up pretty nicely, and you get your 50% off discount for that. All right. So this week, in fact, April 21st, the sun is square Pluto. April 23rd, we have the full moon in Scorpio. Then Mercury is stationing direct, I think, on the 25th. I'll have to take a look. April 28th, we have Mars conjunct Neptune. I'm a little concerned about that. And then next Monday, to round out Monday and Tuesday of next week, we've got Venus ingressing into Taurus, but it's making a square with Pluto. And then Mars moves into Aries while Venus is squaring off with Pluto on April 30th. I'm going to talk a little bit about that this week because next week I'm going to run kind of through the May overview, and May kind of starts obviously where April's leaving off, and it's being a little tense, and I am purposely leaving April 28th early hours here in Bahrain. I'm purposely leaving April 28th to get back to the States ahead of Mars ingressing into Aries. No, I'm not worried about what's happening directly in Bahrain. I just want to be able to not have to extend my trip further so I can get back and take care of things in the United States. So I have a lot of work to do. As you know, I've been working this whole trip. However, it's not the same as being in your own office, and I got a lot of stuff to catch up on. So just a reminder that in April, I said it would be a super wet month, and we did see issues with flooding around the world, including in places like Dubai. And in fact, let's see, the April 8th eclipse is visible in the United States. Anywhere it is visible, we'll see environmental issues, big fires, or flooding later in the month. But of course, there was flooding all over the world. This is climate change. Governors, senators, and CEOs in the path of the eclipse will have scandals or find themselves in a bad public light, even with their own supporters. Globally, this will put a strain on leaders of all kinds. In the United States, leaders will have their misdeeds publicly aired and reputations ruined. Now, that is over a 6-month period of time after the April 8th solar eclipse. And then America could experience an attack. Be wary of the narrative spun by the media. It will not be the surprise officials make it out to be. Crypto and gold will rise in price. Now, funny enough, they expected crypto to dip a lot more than it did before the halvening, and it's on the rise slowly. It's on the rise. So there's that. Pulling up what I wrote in the magazine. Let's grab the magazine. Working on the magazine now, I tell you, for May, and it comes out May 2nd. I always put it out May 2nd because I get it to patrons first. And and that's at the $15 level and up. But you can now buy the magazine if you don't want to be a patron. You can buy the magazine in the Patreon shop. So let me get to, let's see. All right. We've got the moon in Libra as I record this. We've got the moon in Libra. And I'm trying to, there we go. Now I've expanded it so I can read it. Those of you who do not know, I am visually impaired and I have to blow everything way big for me to be able to see it. April 20th through the 23rd, depending on where you live in the world. Social media companies are under scrutiny. And of course, we had the TikTok vote through the House. I think it's going to be challenged a great deal. We're going to see possible huge windstorms or strange weather, weird lights in the sky, or lenticular clouds make the news. Anti-war protests will increase globally. Jack Smith will make a bold move. I think that's more likely like Monday, maybe Tuesday morning. Issues with law enforcement in a court case may be up in the headlines. We could see high winds, tornadoes, hail. Announcement of legal proceedings of a high-profile case could be people associated with Trump, or it could be the Trump trial itself. I think Trump's not getting great news on Monday or even Tuesday. I think he's not going to be happy with this full moon necessarily either, but more like right after the full moon, like the next day. I think that may be not his favorite. I think we could see a big explosion bomb or infrastructure failures or all of it globally. New information leaked about U.S. officials and or financial matters to do with an elected official. I think this is more likely on Monday, and it could have to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene. International courts are up on deck, and that could be the ICC, ICJ, any of the international courts, or court cases to do with international matters and borders. We could see international agreements made or nullified in a surprising way. A leader could be challenged. There could be an attempted coup or official deposed or a vote of no confidence. This could be global. Infrastructure failures, including bridges, freeways, overpasses, dams, and or building collapses. An issue with new technology or AI causes concern, and that would be across the board. We could see issues with electric or hybrid vehicles. These could be recalls, fires, accidents, etc. Climate change data comes in with some startling news, and I do think it's to do with not just temperatures, but to do with ice melt. And I think as we move into the winter, that's going to be a real big issue. Issues to do with jet stream or ocean currents, unseasonable weather, air travel disrupted, and I think that's probably, more likely on the 23rd. We could see big violence, could be war, could be public violence, and we could see missiles launched anytime between the 20th and 23rd. Not a big surprise. We've got multiple areas of conflict going on in the world. The moon moves into Scorpio April 23rd, and that full moon happens at around 5-6 degrees. I'm not looking at the chart right now, so we could see a big internet disruption, especially late April 24th, early on the 25th. U.S. time. Surprise attacks or mass violence on the 25th, murder or assassination attempts, big information leaks revealed or serious espionage allegations. And I think that's throughout the week as Mars starts moving towards Neptune. We could see a big burst water mains or issues with drainage and public utilities. It could be more flooding events as well. We could hear about waterborne illnesses in the headlines. Water quality issues and discussion around commercial water. That could be commercial water sources. Flooding, storms, high tides. Biden and or Putin could face serious health crisis or political challenge. I honestly think they have been. Both of them have been. I think they've been having political challenges interiorly, but I also think they've been having health crises and we're just not hearing about it. There could be more talk about war crimes and mass graves discovered, and not simply Gaza, but beyond that as well. We could hear about more issues to do like with Armenia. We could hear some things come out of the Balkan states. That's, Bosnia, Croatia, not Croatia, sorry, Serbia. I always say Croatia. It's Serbia. Graveyards, cemeteries, and mortuaries could be in the news, and that could be a scandal, but it could just be they're in the news. Maybe one is getting sold, et cetera, et cetera. Commercial real estate's probably up in the news as well. Donald Trump gets bad legal news, and it could be due to a judge. Sabotage of pipelines and or transportation of trade, of toxic waste exposed. We could hear about all kinds of pipelines being sabotaged. That could be gas, oil, etc. And then toxic waste spills could be in the news. Issues with oil refiners and refineries and gas pipelines, Navy exercises and conflicts and skirmishes. And for those of you keeping up on that boat with relief supplies for Gaza, I think that's going to have a crisis as well. We could see bomb threats and or terrorist alerts throughout Europe and the United States, and even into kind of any of the like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, EU in general. We could see seismic activity increase offshore New Zealand, Australia, Chile, Mid-Atlantic Ridge, but also in the Caribbean. I think it's a possibility. Parts of central and the northern part of South America as well. If I'm not mentioning your region and you live in an active seismic zone, always be ready. Okay, always be ready. I'm just not pinpointing it there. I'm just not seeing it. Doesn't mean it can't happen. April 25th through the 28th, the moon is in Sagittarius, and this is going to be real hot politically. They're going to see a lot of arguments, people making debates, and we can see issues around religion and religious figures, including the Pope. We could see an issue with Trump's family or home, their properties. Okay, arsons with wild bushfires, high winds. This is global. Treaties, trade agreements, and international law or international organizations in the headlines. April 26th could see misuse of force or use of illegal weapons, maritime incidents, accidents, and issues in ports, climbing or hiking accident, rock slide, landslide, or issue in national park public lands, espionage, intelligence agencies, accusations of spying, treason, breach of agreements, Julian Assange in the news, increased seismic activity in all seismic zones, massive storm or issues to do with a massive storm. So it could be repercussions from that. We could see hurricanes just ramp up, and something that starts at sea and goes through more than one country. So this could be like in the Gulf of Mexico. This could be out in the Pacific. We could see typhoons. We could see hurricanes. We could see tensions rise in Taiwan Straits in the South China Sea, but this could also, again, be a typhoon. We could see a data breach and information leaks. We will see issues with publishers, newspapers, journalists, or censorship in the news, or censorship policies be revealed, legal proceedings of a high-profile case announced, or we'll be talking about it. The Pope's health or other religious figures' health is in question. We could also see a church official, and that could be any church, any religion. So it'd be a religious figure under investigation. Citizen armies may rally and attempt to defend Palestine. Use of drones or sea-to-air missiles could be up on deck. Accidents with missiles and or satellite launches. We could see some misfires, whether that gets reported at the time. We may hear about it 6 months later. Escalation of existing tensions. The odds of that happening after the 28th are very, very high and around that date. And then issues to deal with radiation or toxins. And I don't know if you heard about that. Russia's been having some issues with that. Now, I promised I'd go a little bit into April 28th through the 30th while the moon is in Capricorn. And the reason for that is I really kind of want to focus on May next episode because we're ending April and moving into May, and May is a very, very volatile month. May, June, July, pretty much through the rest of the year, but we're building up a lot of instability is really happening, especially post Jupiter Uranus conjunction on the mundane stage, in the world stage. On an individual level, this could be the best time of your life. So I don't want you to totally equate the two of these things together. So April 28th through the 30th, we have erosion causing storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, changing temperatures, thaws, and freezes, either snow in lower elevations or, hot weather. You could just have things bounce around temperature wise anywhere in the globe. It could just be really weird. Depends on your elevation, but we could see lower elevation snow, just like a late spring storm in it somewhere in the world. It just could be weird. But again, we could see a spike in temperatures as well. Attempts to expand aggression in the Levant. I think we'll see things starting to expand, especially around the 30th as Mars gets ready to move into Aries. Luckily, it's not making too many hard aspects to any of the big boy planets, so that's kind of nice. Economic or trade sanctions announced by a global alliance. Let's see. Infrastructure failures, roads, bridges, dams, buildings, rail systems, power grids, and water systems in the news. Workers' rights and strikes or union busting globally. Or union forming. We've been seeing some of that. Big corporations or financial institution has a big loss or failure. This is global. Increased seismic activity is escalated up to possible 6.5 offshore. Private equity firm is in trouble. Issue with maritime transportation. Monopoly under investigation. Celebrity scandal or breakup. BRICS nations make moves to financially undercut current market space in some way. Leader deposed or coup d'etat or world leader dies. Seismic activity increased. Boy, I've got that twice, up 6.5. Sometimes when I rate it twice, that's just like a doubling down on that. Issue with oil pipeline platform or drilling operation at sea. Issue with British Prime Minister or MP. Rishi Sunak may be in trouble, and I may have got his birth time. It's not like 100% double A, but I'll be looking at that. Not this episode, but if you've been wondering about Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, we'll be talking about him. Big layoffs from major corporation and or retailer. Ice melt and rising sea levels could be in the news, and that's really how we're kind of rounding off the month. What the heck? Yeah. So I don't know what I did there. Something happened with the magazine. Um, but yeah, so we've got some crazy stuff going on with the weather, um, international stuff. And none of this is, I'm looking at this and I may have messed up my dates. The 30th. That's what I did. I wrote down the date wrong. On April 30th, the moon will slide into Aquarius. So it's really April 30th through May 2nd. Strange lightning. We end the month with strange storms, lightning, storms at sea, unusual weather, issues with internet or cell towers and networks. Tech sector volatile, issues with AI, more layoffs in the tech sector, electrical failures, equipment, and machinery, air accidents, issues with air traffic control, military helicopters, or mechanical failures to do with air. This doesn't necessarily mean it's commercial flights. High-speed rail issues, missiles, rockets, and or drones misfire or accidentally strike sensitive targets. Or on purpose even. Julian Assange could be in the headlines. Trump loses more money. We could see a power plant, chemical plant, accidents, and then seismic activity could be pretty high. end of April, early May. So that could be some big stuff, especially Southeast Asia, New Zealand, South Pacific, and South America. Those are all up on deck. And if you hear that lovely boop boop sound, that is the Discord playing off. It looks like people are pulling tarot cards in the Discord. If you're not part of the Awake Space Astrology Discord, make sure you join. If you are a patron, our Discord is chock-a-block full of information. You can ask questions, get answers, build community, and every Sunday you can link up your own endeavors. Make sure when you do link up, do make sure you support other people in that as well. So let's talk about the TikTok ban. All right. Let's talk about, speaking of support, that's what led me there. Speaking of support, we're looking at the TikTok ban. And what I've been doing is going to my favorite creators and seeing where else I can follow them. How can I support them in their endeavors? A lot of us don't make money from the Creator Fund. I do not make money from the Creator Fund. I purposely made that decision. I don't think it pays very well, and it takes a lot of effort to make videos. And I have a face that's great for radio. And so, and no, I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm just more comfortable with audio. And so I do the videos as public service announcements. I don't make a living off of TikTok. I don't make money off of that. If people gift me during a live, that's nice. It's like a tip. Okay. I make my income from teaching, readings, Patreon support to keep the content coming out to you. And so I know a lot of creators on there there's some who do make a living there. Most people I follow don't. They make it in other ways. So I've gone and been like, how can I support these people? So I've been supporting people in their Patreons, even if I join at their lowest level, just because I do follow a lot of people on Patreon and support as many people as I can. Just because I get so much support. So I want to support other people. I went and I subscribed to YouTube channels. I went and looked up their websites and just made sure I check in so they can get some traffic. I don't think a lot of people understand how the internet works when you use it as part of your business unless you do that, And so one of the ways you can support your favorite creators, if you really love their sense of humor or their big heart or their dedication to service or whatever it is that you love about a creator, what you can do right now to help support them is join a Patreon if they've got it. You can always check the link in their bios on TikTok. Make sure you follow them on Instagram or Facebook if you're on there. I have stuff there. I don't post there because I don't like Mr. Zuckerberg. Okay, so, and I just haven't figured out how to delete everything. So, I'm not really on Instagram much, but Woke Astrologer is there, and you can follow me there if you want. I really should just, I don't know. I'll be handing social media over to somebody at some point. So there's that. That's what you can do to support people. Okay. Here at the Awake Space Astrology Podcast, you can join as a free member on Patreon. I'm working at getting more information up. Obviously, I've been traveling. It makes it a little difficult on the creation side of things because, again, I have been dedicating time with family I haven't seen in 26 years. So it's been really important to do that. We have to put our priorities in a place. But I've been trying to get you a little nugget here and there. So there's that. Do I think TikTok is going to be gone? No, I honestly don't. I've looked through their charts. I've looked through, and I've talked about this. I think we may see it changed. I think we may see stronger moderation, different kinds of policies. But I think it's going to get tied up in court. I really do. I think it's going to get tied up in court, and I'm not convinced it's going to go all the way. First of all, this vote happened while Mercury was retrograde. I just don't think that bodes well for this, and I think that they will fight tooth and toenail. And I think you're also going to see civil rights groups fighting tooth and toenail. I think the last thing you need to do is roll over and give up. Okay. And that's what the experts are saying too. Don't roll over, give it a good shot. And for those of us who've been kind of complaining that TikTok isn't as fun to be on or watch anymore, I'm just trying to make content you enjoy watching. I really don't care what everybody else is doing and what the trends are. I just try to make content that either uplifts, reassures, or informs, period. That's what I care about. And I'll be there as long as it's there. And again, you can even listen to this podcast on YouTube. And no, I don't have it in a video format. But you can put the subtitles on, So a lot of times I record this like when I have a minute, and I'm not always camera ready. Like right now, I'm not camera ready. So my apologies to my acting teacher all those years ago who always said, be camera ready, but I'm not. Okay. So there is that. Let's see. What else do we have going on? So that was the TikTok. That was the tiki-taki. Oh yeah, the full moon. I might be avoiding that. I might be avoiding the full moon. Not really, though. Not really. I think we get kind of lucky that the full moon is happening not with a ton of stuff to fully send things tits up itself that day. But if you do work in emergency services, okay, so if you're a nurse, an EMT, a firefighter, a police officer, any of the helping professions, if you work in an emergency department, any of that, my friends, we may see some pretty gnarly accidents. And you might also see like impalements and things like that. Stuff that's kind of gross. Not gonna lie. Could see some poisonings or weird illnesses. Not necessarily COVID, but it could be like food poisoning to the nth degree, or, might even see some parasites. And no, not like the movie, but just, maybe Giardia or something. Maybe the weather's gotten warmer and people are out in lakes and things, and there's some toxicity people are picking up. So if you work in emergency services, now if you don't work in emergency services, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean that's happening to you. Oh, she's pulling up charts. Before I talk about that full moon, let me do a patron shout out. All right. This is where we thank our new patrons. And these are paying patrons at the $5 level and above. We've got Carla, Charles, Wendy, Monica, NC, Lourdes, Yogi. I love that. AKA Commander Neptar. I love that. Adrian, Nicole, Carmen, Jason, Melissa, Mina, Bobby, or actually Bobby Joe, Carissa, Hannah, Diana, Hannah, Mary Kate, Michelle, Tori, Tina, Cecilia, Laura, Andrea, Meg, Courtney, Chris, Morgan, Karen, KG, Elizabeth, Ricky, Claire, Alexis, Jenny, Maya, Debbie, Christina, Jenny, Larissa, D, Laura, Carrick, Rudat, and Nico. Welcome, new patrons. Make sure you check out all of your perks as patrons. Go check the Awake Space Patreon shop. In the shop, you can download the ebooks. There's a lot of good information in those. There's videos. I'll be working on getting some other of the like mini workshops up for you guys. I know I've got the love and sexuality in the horoscope up on there. You get the 2024 year ahead 2-hour seminar. And for $15 and up, patrons, that's where you're going to find your magazine and you can download that. There's all sorts of goodies. And then make sure you pay attention to the emails because that's where I send out the juicy discounts. So patrons always save with me. Speaking of juicy discounts, Matilda, I almost said her real name. Matilda is doing an event with me. What in the world? We're doing a live event talking about global events and people of note, as she likes to say, so public figures. And we're looking, of course, at like Trump, Biden, Netanyahu. We're looking at Taylor Swift. Her spidey senses are up on that one. So we're looking at various parts of the world, including countries in the EU like France, Germany, the United Kingdom. Oh yeah, we're looking at Rishi Sunak. Let's see, we're also looking at various places in the United States like New York, LA, Vegas. There's stuff coming up on that. We're looking at May and June, and we also see quite a bit of natural events. This could be weather, it could be natural disasters, like earthquakes, volcanoes, droughts, floods, that kind of fun stuff. May and June and a little bit of July is what we're looking at. And we're drilling down. So we both do predictions in our own modality, me as a professional astrologer, her as a professional psychic and medium, and her information comes through her guidance. My information comes through doing astrology practices, and then I narrow it down with a little bit of intuition, but not the same way as she does. And what's really cool is I can verify dates of things she's talking about when she's talking about an event. It's like, oh, that would be during this time period. And then when I'm talking about an individual or an event, she can dial down into the specifics. So if I say like, oh, I see a politician under strain, she'll be like, oh, that's this one, And so it's really fun to listen to us tag team. That event, we have 2 timings. It's the same event. It's just meeting the Western hemisphere of the world, which is North and South America, and the Eastern hemisphere of the world, Europe through Asia and down into Middle East and Africa, down into Australia, New Zealand, and everything in between. So you guys have options on timing, so you don't have to be up in the middle of the night. Leave that to us. If you are a patron, $15 and up in either of our Patreons, you save 50% on that event. This is going to wow and amaze you, and we're pretty excited about it. So you can check that out in her Patreon and my Patreon. I've linked those up here. It's exciting times on this planet. So now, the full moon. Are you ready to hear about that full moon and what I think we need to focus on as individuals? Because you have to remember, energy expresses in a spectrum. So at the and I hate these terms, okay? But at the lowest form, the densest form, let's put it that way. The densest energy is deeply physical. It's the collective unconscious. It's limited agency. Okay, not a lot of free will. When you have like groupthink, group thought, people aren't really thinking, they're just reacting. Also, when we're looking at earthly matters, like truly earthly matters, like weather, climate, things like that, it's things that move with instinct versus deliberate intent. And that would be deliberate intent is up at the higher expression of the energy. And it's not about a moral of good or bad. Okay, but the more deliberate you are, the more you're wielding your consciousness. Even if somebody's being really mean in their consciousness and they're being deliberate, that is a higher expression than being utterly instinctually reactive. At least That's how it looks, because people can be instinctually nurturing as well without deliberate intent. It's still the lower frequency. So it's not about high vibes, low vibes as in good and bad. It's more about how is it happening? Is there deliberate intent and free will and agency used or not? Okay. So you'll notice there's times of year where people are all just feeling a lot more altruistic and people are just kind of rolling with being nicer. That is unthinking and instinctual niceness versus somebody who's had a really crappy day and is like, you know what, I've had a crappy day, but I'm still going to be nice to people. That's a higher function of that energy. So there we go. This full moon, it's intense. We live in intense times. I think the day of the full moon isn't going to be super intense in the same way, although I think we could see some shenanigans. Let's look at the 23rd here. I'm just pulling it up. And pardon me while my internet's been a little slow. Come on. This stupid thing does not work for me here as well. Okay. So the moon moves into Scorpio at around 8:50 a.m. or probably more around like 8:40 a.m. Pacific, around that time. And so midday East Coast. Okay. And the full moon is happening at about 4 degrees of Scorpio. So it's a very early, full moon in the degrees. It's not so it's starting kind of a new revelation. So we could have new information come out. Yeah, it's 4 degrees and some change. Let's see. It's going to happen in the afternoon. Oh my God. This software. Okay. Yeah, so it's going to happen it'll be in the evening. It'll be in the evening on the East Coast. It'll happen sometime around 8 p.m. Actually, I can give you the exact time if I look on my cheat sheet instead of me messing around. So 4:49 p.m. Pacific. So that's like 7:49 Eastern. We have the full moon in Scorpio. It's at 4 degrees and some change. It's new, and it's very, very scorpionic. We could have a sex scandal, and one we weren't expecting. So this isn't an existing one. This could be a new one. And that could be a little spicy. The full moon will be squaring off with Pluto. We could hear about human trafficking. This could be a big expose. This could be a person of prominence. I also think we could see some earth moving happening. So like an earthquake, and this could be, let's see, this could be like in Central America or Mexico. I'm just looking. Could be up in Alaska. Japan could have another one. So that's potential as well. And I think also maybe on the Mexico-Nevada border with California as well. These may not be huge. Okay, these could be like 4.5 to 6.0. 6.0 would be the highest range potentially that I'm seeing there. But if it's offshore, it's bigger. So something out in the Pacific could be big. But there's that. let's see, Mercury doesn't go direct until the 25th. But on the 25th, while the moon is still full, I'm a little concerned. So early hours of the morning, so like sometime around 2 a.m. Pacific, around then, plus or minus. I'm being general on the timing. But early hours Pacific time, which would be commute time on the East Coast, we have the moon in opposition to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which is now separating all week. And that's going to be some kind of big bada boom energy. While the moon is, starting to make a trine with Mars. Well, it's leaving the trine with Saturn, moving into a trine, an approaching trine with Mars and Neptune. Now, this could be seismic activity. More in the south, I think this is a hurricane, to be honest, the more I look at this, but we could also see seismic activity more likely in South America. Now, this could be Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina area, but it could also be in the Caribbean. And again, I think we could see a hurricane or a typhoon forming. It's a little nasty. And I think I'm going to look at later in the day because I'm not sure when Mercury is going direct exactly. It's going direct in the morning because by almost 3 p.m. Pacific, it's already directed or it's already stationed. Not necessarily moving forward, but it's stationed. It'll be moving in direct motion on the 26th. Yeah. Let me look at the 28th. You're just hearing me do the astrology. Oh, come on. This thing. 28th. Like, please let it be after I land. Please let it be after I land in LA. Let's find out. No, I know I'll be okay, guys. Don't worry about me. I know I'm okay. So, yeah, it'll be. I think there's going to be some news that comes out overnight, but it could be like by the 5 o'clock news, there starts to be some rumblings or hints of a leader. We could see a scandal. So, but yeah, on the 28th. But anywho, so let's go back to the full moon. And what can you do with this? Now, in the Awake Space Astrology magazine, I always give hints and tips on what you can do with the energy of both the new and full moons. Let's see. Going back. Let's see the full moon. Let's find it. Let's find that page. Here I did. I gave you some journal prompts with this one. So during this week, what I think you can do over the next couple of days. Now, if you got the magazine, your journal prompts were due it a week before, right? So in Scorpio, this full moon is going to reveal that which is restored. Accept support from your ancestors and receive that which has transformed. Now, I know there is a creator, and I like her, who talks about people's ancestors. If they were horrible people, they probably haven't changed in the afterlife. And I kind of want to counter that. So my understanding from the traditions I have studied, which may be different than the traditions they have studied. And that's the fun thing about energy work and metaphysics is there's different schools of thought. So from the school of thought I was taught, the human being is made up of multiple bodies. We have our emotional body, we have our mental body, and we have our physical body. And and all of that forms our personality. And then we have our soul body. Now our soul body is connected, is the universe. Okay. That's a slice of the universe, individualized. Okay. But it is the part of us that is connected to the all that is. That part is unsullied. There's nothing about it that needs to change or be healed or. A lot of times I think what people call the soul, they mean the spirit. Okay. And that's more like our own personal version of understanding of self and our identity as an individual human being. So that's us, warts and all of our flaws. I think if you have a strong enough identity, enough of one that you're hanging out and in spirit on the physical plane, enough to be able to be connected to with readiness and ritual, it's more like it's like an echo of who you are or a hologram of who you were, right? That is like a coalesced thought form, an identity, right? So I think when that person is talking about your ancestors were assholes and like, here's they are, I think that isn't necessarily wrong. I think that's what people see as ghosts, is that hologram of individuality. But if you're tuning in to the source self, the soul self of that individual, the self that is connected to the all that is and returns to infinite intelligence, infinite wisdom, infinite love, again, the all that is, you're dealing with two different kinds of energy. And we are all of that wrapped into one. Not one of us is perfect. Not one of us is squeaky clean as an individual. We've all done things that are less than great. And yet just know as you grow and you work on yourself and you release things like resentment, grudges, biases, hatreds, as you release that, you grow and you transform and you expand, hopefully in this physical lifetime. But if time is nonlinear, and let's say as we move through each present moment, there's multiple dimensions that exist all at one time. That past version of self may have a very strong identity. Think of it as like cosmic multiple personality. That there is a version of self that may be the part that is healing or needing healing or didn't ever heal. And that is that echo or that hologram that may be less than useful. And so that's why being very deliberate in understanding of your intention in working with ancestors is important. So it is important to tune into the qualities you'd like to adopt versus just willy-nilly. And this is the point I think they're making, is if you're just tuning into your ancestors who were bigoted, harmful, violent people, then you are probably tuning without thought of, hey, I want to tune into the part of that person that got something, that learned their lesson, even if they learned it after death. That's something you want to work on. So there's that. Alrighty, let's take a look. I hope that made sense. Okay, I hope that made sense. That's how I see it. I don't think things are as cut and dried as people want to make out. I don't know. I just got a message from my daughter. I guess there's some astrologer she wants me to take down. That's funny. So, they are connected with the Z's out there. So we'll see. All right. How long have we got? We're at 55:33 here. Wow, 55 minutes, 33 seconds in this episode. I might answer some questions. I might answer a question or two. Let me take a look at the podcast Q&A. These questions are submitted to me by patrons. And there is podcast Q&As are up in the Patreon. Okay, so Jessica's asking, from seeing your birth chart a bunch, Laurie, I've noticed that us late 70s, early 80s babies have Pluto conjunct your moon. This is a broad question, but since we're all walking transits and Pluto conjunct the moon is a pretty big one, could you talk about how you experience interactions with us as a generation? Can you intuitively tell when someone is a zillennial from meeting them, for example? Well, no, not necessarily. I tend to have a fondness for that age group. I babysat people your age. That's a good question. I think a lot of you are drawn to me for transformational experiences, and I think you can feel a different kind of nurturing. It would really be late 70s would be the conjunction, like 77 through 79 would be utterly conjunct. Early 80s a little bit, but not quite. There's other stuff going on with that. I don't know. It was an intense time in my life, in my childhood. That's a good question. I think I just kind of know. I think a lot of times, actually, it's more on your end. I think a lot of times you guys expect me to know more about you as individuals intuitively than I do. I think you guys think I have some kind of like hidden knowledge to be the magic bullet for you. So I do a lot of measuring expectations with you guys, because I think a lot of times people will be like, oh, she knows me inside and out. And there might be like this really, it's a very unconscious, intuitive connection. So I think a lot of times I might step on your personal landmines or where you need to heal, and you think I consciously know more about you if I'm not looking at your chart. So I think a lot of times there's that. But we are all walking transits. So yeah. So it's very interesting to see how it goes. It depends on what else is going on in the charts. You know I'm always going to give that answer. But Jessica, that was a really good question. So let's see what else is up. What else am I going to answer this episode? Scorpio teacup. So lately, I've been pondering and meditating on different parts of my chart. Lately, I've been drawn to my Jupiter and Leo in the 10th. I'm a Scorpio rising and cringe when I'm seen, and I don't want to be, but I truly long to be in the public eye. Yeah, welcome to be a Scorpio rising with a Leo midheaven. Is this a prominent contributing factor to why I feel such a pull to step into the spotlight? Yes. I think all Scorpio risings that happen to have a Leo midheaven feel conflicted because there's the square, right? Between the Scorpio and the Leo. But I think also you have to understand people are misreading Leo in that as well, just thinking of it as the spotlight. Leo is so much more than that. It's generous, it's kind, it's warm-hearted, it's leadership in a benevolent way when we're looking at the highest expressions. I think as a Scorpio rising, being seen was not always a safe thing as a kid. And so that reticence to be seen, there were repercussions to being seen. Authority figures, depending on what you have going on in your chart, didn't always welcome you shining, or you may have dealt with people being jealous of you or calling you arrogant. People might say you intimidate them, and you have a natural confidence about you that people seek out. So I don't think you have to seek the spotlight. I think you have to let go of resisting being seen, because you can't not be seen, period.
And you really need to cultivate how you're seen is what's important, because you benefit greatly by being perceived. And you're going to benefit from that no matter what, but the benefit increases when you do it deliberately and with careful cultivation. So there's that. Let's see, what else have we got here? Anonymous. Hey, Laurie, asking for some advice here. I'm 21 years old and newly awakened. Aw, big hugs, honey. I've always been a little magical, but just didn't know it. Of course you are. I care about our world and what my role is, although so often people in older generations in conversation about the volatility will make comments that is sometimes difficult for me to filter out, mostly when talking about housing and affordable rent. It's not what I want to ignore the reality of it, but I want to believe it will get better for me, for us. I read lots of books like Creative Visualization and Abraham Hicks, and their teachings touch me, and I can't help but apply them to this. Why wouldn't those techniques work in this situation? There's no reason for those techniques not to work in this situation. Absolutely no reason, except when you're visualizing, when you're creating for you, you're creating for you. You cannot create for anybody else but yourself. You can't love someone enough to make them change. You can't intend enough for them to change, because if you're trying to get society to change and you're like, I'm going to set my intentions to make society change, you're actually putting your focus on what's wrong with society because they need to change. Right. And both of those authors would would tell you that. Okay. The only person you can truly intend with crystal clarity is you. But when you change, the world around you changes. And that's why Abraham Hicks says 1 person in alignment is stronger than 1,000,000 people out of alignment. Okay. And I firmly believe that. But you're not going to be in alignment if you're trying to make the rest of the world change. So I wouldn't believe everything that older people or older generations say. Like if they say, oh, you'll be more conservative when you get older. No, that's not necessarily true. I think I'm more radical and even more left than I was as a young person, with some pragmatism and life experience under my belt. But that doesn't necessarily help move things forward in a magical way. That's just like, sometimes that's a hurdle. I don't see why you can't use those things for your own housing security, for your own employment. You're not hurting anyone, and you're not being selfish when you're doing that. Because when your life improves, you can pull somebody else up. You don't do it for that reason, but you will. Okay. So big hugs, honey. This was a great question, and I think it benefits people of all age groups. But you can put your energy towards the world changing, but you will get very, very tired. Ask me how I know. I used to be I almost took myself out energetically and, like fried my own circuits trying to love the world so deeply it would change. And all that did was it was a resistance pattern on steroids, and this was when I was in my late 20s and early 30s, and it'll zap you. And the thing is you're not trying to create it better. Your focus is truly on the problem instead of the solution. So there's that. Eli, back in 2017, I witnessed the total solar eclipse that fell in my 6th house. This year, I witnessed the total solar eclipse that fell in my 12th house. I had not been in any total solar eclipse pathway other than these two. Are these energies connected since they both fall in the 6th and 12th house polarity? Yeah, it could be. That's opening you up to the mystic and maybe reshaping how you do your daily life. So it might have put you on the path of the mystic. Who knows, Eli? We'll have to talk about it. That was a good question, but they do seem related because they happened in the polarities. So that's pretty cool. And I'll do one more question to wind up this episode. Alrighty. MK asks, I've been hearing people talk about the planet that rules the chart and the planet that dominates the chart, and was wondering if I could explain the difference. I honestly hate the whole dominant thing. It's new. It has nothing to do with traditional astrology. It is an internet thing, and it's lazy astrology. You have a chart ruler and you have a potential dispositor. Okay. But a chart ruler, see, to me, the final dispositor is the chart ruler, but not everybody has a final dispositor. I teach this in depth in the intermediate astrology class, but the chart ruler, I think people also don't understand what that means. So it comes from the rising sign. So people say that the planet that governs the sign or that rules the sign of the rising. So like I'm a Scorpio rising, it could be Mars and Pluto. You could say those are my chart rulers. Okay. And let's say I don't do any dispositions. We're just going to talk about chart rulers. There are people who act like that's the end of story. You're Mars Pluto person, and none of the Cancer, none of the Virgo, none of the Taurus, none of the Gemini, none of the Libra, none of that will matter as much because the chart ruler. And that's not how that works. Rulership and dispositors are like heavy top notes or heavy bottom notes that influence how the energy of your chart expresses. Okay, period. Because it depends on where other placements are. So like I said, I think I see a lot of, well, no, I don't think. I know I see a lot of lazy astrology on internet forums or just misguided people who don't know any better repeating things. But in order to really accurately assess your chart, you need to synthesize it. So understanding that just like a really good chocolate or a really good wine or a really good cheese, you're going to have top notes, bottom notes, in between notes, and the main flavor. Okay. So to me, a dominant doesn't exist. It's a new thing. It is not astrology. It's a new internet thing. I don't know. It's maybe like 15 years old, but I don't see a point because when people are like, oh, I'm Pluto dominant. And I'll be like, how did you extrapolate that? And they'll be like, well, I have my moon conjunct my Pluto. I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't make you, how the hell is that dominant? You know what I mean? I also think it comes from the overweighing and measuring of placements. Like this placement, it's lighter than this placement. This placement's heavier than this. Like, Again, I think it's over intellectualization instead of actually doing good delineation of a chart. And that's why I teach things. I hope that answered that and made it clearer than mud. You can let me know in the Discord or on Patreon in the messages. So there's our questions, a little Q&A to round this up. Don't freak out over this week, but just know that things are starting to build pressure-wise. There's going to be a big release of pressure between the 23rd and 25th. This has to do, the full moon is just revealing some big information. I think we could see some espionage matters happen or accusations, but there might be some good news for Julian Assange. So we'll be tuned for that. All right, I got to go record the next episode where we're going to be talking about May. Make sure you read the show notes. That's where the links to Matilda and my live event, What in the World, and all the other stuff we talked about in the episode. So I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to being back in the States next week.